Prologue. 17 years ago, on the black sands of Sunavik, Ivar Ironheart has conquered his elder and now rules as king from Askaborg. Despite his victory, he is frustrated by his Norvalander wife Sina's failure to bear him a son. Seeking answers, Ivar consults a Galdra weaver who reads threads of fate through tapestry. After pricking his blood, she weaves a vision showing his past, battles, and ultimately his death, slain by Galdr. Refusing to reveal more, the weaver is tied to a pier as the tide rises. Ivar threatens her child, whom Magnus Hansen retrieves, to force her to speak. Terrified, she finally utters the prophecy: Ivar will die by Galdr's hand. Realizing her silence was to protect someone, Ivar orders the child killed and declares a purge of all Galdra. This marks the beginning of his brutal campaign against magic, setting the stage for the kingdom's future oppression and war. In Chapter 1, Silla Nordvig, secretly Isa Volsik, the hunted heir of King Ivar's enemy, rides through the black-walled canyon of Isildur with Rey Axe-Eyes, heading toward Kalasgard. Rey claims Kalasgard is safe, but Silla, bruised from her recent capture in Kopa and haunted by the deaths of Ilias, Matthias, and Skegagrim, believes nowhere is safe now that her true name is known. She battles despair, longing to escape to the southern continent or anywhere she can disappear. While camping at Haybrock's Hammer, Rey urges her to eat, but her grief, addiction cravings, and trauma overwhelm her. She drinks heavily, reminisces, and plays a childhood spinning game, prompting Rey to say she reminds him of someone long dead. The next morning, hungover and paranoid that Rey might discover her identity, Silla resolves never to reveal her true name again. She swears she will never fall into the Clarenar's hands or their prison again. In Chapter 2, Rey reflects on the silence between him and Silla as they ride through the canyon toward Istra. Her behavior reminds him of a girl he once knew, Isa Volsik, long thought dead. As suspicions mount, Rey sends a falcon to Kalasgard with a message and acquires clothing for Silla. While he's gone, she panics and tries to flee on horse. Rey catches her and confronts her, revealing he knows she is Isa. Silla begs to disappear into the wilds, promising him the bounty later, but Rey refuses, declaring her survival too important. Their argument escalates as Silla pleads for autonomy, fearing captivity. Rey insists she must face her past and lead her people. She accuses him of stripping her choice like Jonas did. Rey, hurt, grows cold, and says she'll be handed to allies in Istra. Silla realizes Kalasgard may be another prison, and anger begins replacing her fear. In Chapter 3, Saga Volsik attends a letting ceremony in Urzur's house for the first time in weeks, concealing her anxiety beneath practiced calm. Internally, she struggles with the recent revelation that her sister Isa is alive and being hunted by Queen Sina, who has kept this from her. Desperate to act but powerless, Saga's nerves are frayed. As the ceremony begins, Queen Sina publicly singles Saga out for a healing bloodletting enforced by the High Gathi. Her protests are silent as he exposes her healed scars, shames her for weak faith, and performs an excessive letting, draining multiple cups of her blood. During the ordeal, Saga's telepathic sense inadvertently opens, and she hears the thoughts of the crowd, including Sina's, revealing plans to send Isa to the wolf feeders. This triggers a surge of resolve. As her strength fades, a new purpose crystallizes: intercept the letter and stop Sina. The ember of defiance reignites within her. In Chapter 4, Saga navigates Askaborg's secret tunnels in a weakened state after her letting, determined to intercept Queen Sina's letter ordering Isa's capture. She nearly reaches the falconry tower, but the passage she intended to use has collapsed, forcing her to consider crossing the courtyard, something she hasn't done in 5 years due to trauma. Overwhelmed by panic, she freezes and watches helplessly as a falcon takes flight with the message. Collapsing, she suffers a breakdown but is calmed by a stranger, a large, foreign man named Rurik Cassander, who mistakes her for a servant named Arlog. Sensing an opportunity, Saga maintains the alias and accepts his help returning to the kitchens, masking her identity while fielding his questions. After retreating to her chambers, grief and frustration consume her. Her long-standing fear of the outdoors has cost her the chance to stop the letter. Now, the wolf feeders are coming for Isa, and Saga blames herself. In Chapter 5, Silla and Rey approach Istra in tense silence after her failed attempt to flee. Rey is consumed by guilt over how harshly he treated her, recognizing that he stripped her of choice much as Jonas once did. At the same time, he is angered by Silla's desire to abandon Isildur, which feels like a betrayal of those who died protecting the Volsic family. As they near Istra, Rey grows increasingly uneasy, recalling the Clernar who escaped him at Copa and sensing danger in the woods. Night falls, and they reach Istra's torchlit gates. Silla dismounts and discovers a birch bark bounty notice posted outside the town. The notice depicts Rey and Silla together and offers massive rewards. Rey as Slatrari for 10,000 solas, and Silla alive as his companion for 20,000. Rey realizes they've been anticipated and hunted. In Chapter 6, Rey's identity as the infamous Slatrari is revealed when Silla sees his name etched on a noteboard, triggering panic and confrontation. As Silla attempts to flee, Rey restrains her with his smoke magic and warns her against escaping again. Their argument is interrupted by an ambush of wolf feeders, 18 archers with more hidden. Silla blinds the attackers with her light, while Rey burns many with Galder, allowing them to flee. Pursued through the forest, Rey kills a rider to steal a second horse. He and Silla narrowly evade death as arrows rain down. To halt their pursuers, Rey unleashes all his power, igniting a bridge behind them. One warrior falls to his death, the rest are forced to retreat. In the aftermath, Silla accuses Rey of mass murder. Rey claims justice, not cruelty, and refuses to explain further. With his identity exposed, he decides their only refuge now lies in Kalasgard. In Chapter 7, Jonas Svik drowns in grief and rage at a mead hall in Copa, haunted by memories of his dead brother Ilias and the betrayals that followed. Though once driven by a plan to capture Silla Issa and reclaim his family's honor, that hope is now lost. Silla has escaped, the Clernar have refused his reward, and whispers say she killed their commander. Desperate to feel anything, Jonas drinks and seeks a fight. He overhears warriors discussing a new bounty for the Slatrari and his female companion. Curious, Jonas pays to see the wanted etching, and is stunned to recognize Rainier Bjarg, his former crew leader and friend. Shock deepens as he also recognizes Silla. Doubts and memories surface. Rey's evasions, his protection of Silla, and his strange behavior. Betrayed by both, Jonas denies knowing them. Overcome with fury and heartbreak, he lashes out, punching a warrior and igniting a brawl, finally feeling something, pain and rage. In Chapter 8, Saga hides in a secret passageway near Maester Alfson's study, eavesdropping in hopes of learning Issa's fate. Frustrated by days of silence and failed attempts to use her sense, she finally overhears Queen Sina and Alfson discussing the wolf feeder's failure. Asa and her companion, a dangerous Galdra known as Slatrari, escaped after burning a bridge and wounding one pursuer. The queen is furious but agrees to Alfson's new plan: gather intelligence instead of pursuing direct capture. Etchings of Slatrari have been circulated in the north, and Alfson proposes that informants be used to track his identity and connections. Lady Gara will relay gathered intel to the wolf feeders to tighten their hunt. Saga is relieved to hear Issa escaped and now has an ally, but realizes the danger is far from over. Determined to protect her sister, Saga resolves to infiltrate Gara's trust and interfere with the queen's plans. In Chapter 9, Saga emerges from the hidden library passage, resolved to execute her plan to protect Issa. But before she can return to her chambers, she's spotted by Cassandra Rurik, the Zagadkian envoy she previously deceived by using a false name. Rurik reveals he recognized her by a distinctive bird-shaped earring, confronting her about the lie. To protect her secret and avoid attention from Queen Sina, Saga agrees to give Rurik and his Drugina a tour of Askaborg. During the tour, Rurik grows increasingly curious about her, while Saga struggles to maintain her composure. Their banter becomes personal and combative, exposing deep insecurities, particularly Saga's status as a political pawn. Rurik challenges her self-perception, labeling her a trained pet, which sparks her fury but also forces painful self-awareness. He ultimately promises to keep her secret. Saga ends the tour feeling exposed and furious, vowing never to see him again, despite his parting request to call him Cass. In Chapter 10, Silla and Rey recover after fleeing the wolf feeders, camping deep in the woods. As Rey tends to his arrow wound, Silla battles her growing revulsion at the violence he unleashed and struggles to accept that he is the feared Slatrari. Rey reveals he met Isa when she was a toddler, Silla herself, during a royal visit, when she injured her eye while he was left to watch her. Silla finally realizes her adoptive parents were actually the nursemaid Aina and bodyguard Tomas, who fled the palace with her. Overwhelmed by betrayal and grief, she hides to compose herself. When she returns, Rey saves her from being bitten by their new warhorse, and they share a fleeting moment of connection. As they continue toward Kalasgard, Rey wrestles with the coming confrontation with his past and delays alerting the Oprasna about Silla's true identity. For now, he decides to let her process the truth in her own time. In Chapter 11, Silla and Rey travel north for 6 days, moving into colder, rugged terrain. During the journey, Silla reflects on Rey's power and realizes her own Galder may be something she can master rather than fear. She resolves to learn to control it so she can one day free her sister Saga. They meet Vig and Runny, Galdra siblings, Rey previously sent from Kalasgarda, who reveal Rey's true surname, Galtung, and confirm he is from Kalasgarda. Around the campfire, Vig and Runny explain the types of Galdra, including warrior and mind Galdra, and identify Silla as an untrained Ashbringer whose abilities were suppressed by skjold leaves. Rey plans to take Silla to an instructor named Harpa. Tension surfaces between Rey and Vig over Rey's past departure from Kalasgard. Silla learns Rey works for the Oprasna, a rebel movement seeking to restore Volscic to the throne, and realizes Rey has been acting as their blade. In Chapter 12, Silla, Rey, Vig, and Runny travel 3 more days through the harsh northern mountains, eventually reaching Kalasgarda. Along the way, Silla senses they're being watched. Rey confirms danger by returning with blood on his horse. Upon arrival, Kalasgarda impresses Silla with its beauty, icy peaks, and spiritual customs. She notices protective runes and offering plates on homes, learning the town rarely sees Clarenar enforcers. They continue to a hidden clearing where Runny's light-bending magic reveals a shield home meant to conceal Silla and Rey. As they settle in, Rey withdraws, leaving Silla alone. Though she finally finds refuge, the joy she expected never comes, only emptiness. Meanwhile, Rey grapples with returning to Kalasgard, where he's no longer welcome. Once a beloved local, now an outsider, his past as Rey Galtung clashes with his role as the rebel enforcer Axe Eyes. Haunted by grief and failure, he resolves to do better, for Silla's sake, despite feeling trapped by fate. In Chapter 13, Saga executes a daring plan to protect Isa by forging a letter from Queen Sina. After confirming that Lady Gera acts as the Queen's scribe, Saga gains an invitation to her chambers by feigning interest in bone figurines. She prepares a painful skin reaction using powdered lunabulbs, tricking Gera into touching it. When the reaction begins, Saga uses the distraction to steal Gera's necklace of keys. She guides the panicked woman toward her bedchamber, memorizing the layout as she goes. Once alone, Saga searches Gera's study. Though initial scrolls belong to the High Gothi, she discovers a hidden floor compartment containing a letter to the Queen and pages of Gera's personal writing, sufficient for forging. The letter confirms that Skreda Clevertongue stole key materials, causing delays in an unknown project, but the Queen's wax sealer is missing. With only 3 days left before the wolf feeders are dispatched again, Saga knows time is running out. In Chapter 14, Silla and Rey ride up Snowspear to meet Harpa, a Galdra instructor who can perform the cohesion rite. Silla is eager to begin training and learn to control her power. Upon reaching the hidden warded cabin, they find Harpa unwilling to help. She slams the door on Rey and only reopens it after his persistent pleas. Inside, Harpa performs a blood reading on Silla and identifies her as Isa Volscic, daughter of King Chartan and Svala. A smoke spirit named Rika appears, warning of danger. Harpa initially refuses to train Silla, claiming she is too old and her mind too rigid. Rey prepares to leave in disappointment, but Harpa changes her mind at the last moment. Moved by loyalty to Chartan, Svala, and Rey himself, she agrees to train Silla. The chapter ends with Silla's secret identity revealed, her path forward uncertain but finally open. In Chapter 15, as Rey and Silla descend Snowspear after securing Harpa's agreement to train Silla, Silla shares her urgent desire to master Galder in order to rescue her sister Saga. Rey, moved but cautious, promises to take her to Jarl Håkon, who may help infiltrate the city. Silla deduces Harpa is Rey's grandmother, and Rey reluctantly shares his traumatic past, how Ivar slaughtered his Volscic-supporting parents and left him and his brother Christian to be raised by Harpa. Back at the Shield Home, they reunite with Vig's family, including Gita and her children, who welcome Silla warmly. The visit is marred by news that a local boy, Vali, is missing. That night, Rey secretly joins the search while Silla remains behind, terrified and feeling abandoned. When Rey returns, Silla attacks, mistaking him for an intruder. The two reconcile emotionally, sharing past traumas and forming a deeper bond. Rey silently resolves to be her protector, her pack. In Chapter 16, Saga infiltrates Maester Alfson's study, posing as a nervous petitioner, desperate to obtain the Queen's wax sealer so she can forge orders and delay the wolf feeder's hunt for Isa. While searching the study, she discovers disturbing evidence of Alfson's experiments and notes referencing Maester Hekla. Drawn by an unexplained compulsion, she nearly forces open a locked cabinet but stops herself. By chance, she finds an unlocked desk drawer containing the Queen's wax sealer bearing the Norvalander wasp sigil and secretly hides it in her bodice. Alfson returns, and Saga maintains her composure while reading his thoughts, learning he had tested her for Galder in the past and is now overseeing correspondence himself, due to Lady Gyra's illness. During their conversation, Saga overhears Alfson planning to send word to the wolf feeders immediately and possibly involve the Black Cloak. She drinks the tonic Alfson prepares, escapes without suspicion, and leaves knowing she has the sealer, but time is now dangerously short. In Chapter 17, Saga wanders Askaborg under the lingering effects of Maester Alfson's tonic. Struggling to stay focused on her urgent task of intercepting the Queen's letter after learning Isa was sighted in Svangormer Pass. Disoriented and euphoric, she encounters Cassandra Rurik near the sparring grounds and admits she took a tonic that has dulled her memory and coordination. Remembering at last that she must reach the Falconry Tower, Saga persuades Rurik to help her get there instead of taking her to her chambers. To avoid being seen, she leads him through a hidden passage into the castle's tunnel network. Along the way, Saga reveals she possesses the Queen's wax sealer and intends to intercept and alter the letter bound for the wolf feeders to protect Isa. Though initially reluctant, Rurik agrees to help on the condition that Saga later provide him with a complete map of Askaborg's tunnels. He takes the wax sealer and leaves to intercept the letter, while Saga, overcome by the tonic, falls asleep hidden in the passage. In Chapter 18, Silla arrives at Harpa's home with Rey, anxious to undergo the cohesion rite and join the ranks of the Galdra. Harpa hesitates but agrees, recognizing the larger forces at play. She confirms Silla is a warrior Galdra, likely possessing Ashbringer intuition and breaker strength. Harpa explains the 5 warrior Galdra types, including the rare smiths who manipulate the bonds of the universe. Silla recalls Commander Valf secretly dosing her with the catalyst, a substance used to trigger priming. Rey is furious at the revelation. Despite her fear, Silla chooses to proceed. Harpa prepares the rite, guiding her through the ritual while Rey stays for support. As the catalyst activates, Silla struggles to empty her mind, haunted by guilt and memories. Harpa gives her a calming mushroom to aid the process. At last, Silla's mind clears, and she descends into the deep consciousness required for cohesion, beginning the transformation into a true Galdra. In Chapter 19, Silla enters the deep mind space of the cohesion rite and finds herself in a silent stone corridor. A grieving older king with a simple crown passes her without seeing her, and her hand goes through him, confirming he is a vision of the past. She follows him through hidden doors and down a spiral stair to a candlelit chamber with a hide-bound book. The king cuts his palm, marks symbols, and calls the Dark One. A shadow crowned with spikes appears and tempts King Hrolf with the return of his beloved Brita in exchange for a girl's life, pushing Silla into crushing guilt and craving for skilled leaves before she is pulled away. Harpa reappears and directs Silla to follow the lights. Silla walks through thousands of fleta and finds a pulsing white orb. She grasps it, briefly perceives the world's bonds and weavings, and the light settles behind her ribs. Her heart and mind cohere, and she awakens in Harpa's cabin, able to sense her Galder. In Chapter 20, Saga wakes in her chambers and realizes the tonic haze and her deal with Cassandra Rurik were real. She finds his note. Meet at Asla Tower tomorrow at the 20th chime. In her drawer, she discovers the Queen's wax sealer and a sealed scroll that Rurik intercepted. Maester Alfson reports Asa and her companion were seen in Svangormer Pass and orders the wolf feeders to apprehend them. Saga forges a replacement letter in Alfson's handwriting, reseals it with the wasp sigil, and prepares a partial map of Askaborg's tunnels to keep leverage over Rurik. At Asla Tower, a thrall named Anna arrives instead of Rurik, revealing she passed him the scrolls and offers to intercept future mail. Anna confides she is Galdra and works with a group investigating Queen Sina and the Clarenar, seeking the name of a liaison. Saga agrees to help, gives Anna the forged scroll to send, shares a hiding place for the sealer, and learns signal linens. White means success, black means danger. Saga leaves determined to expose Sina's schemes. In Chapter 21, Vig visits the Shield home and delivers Rey a sealed message from Jarl Håkon and Kopa. 10 men are needed in 6 days. Rey notes there is no update about Meta, whom Silla asked him to save. Vig questions Rey's plans, and Rey admits he is arranging to deal with the killings in Istra, though he still does not know what is responsible. Vig shares local worries. Weeks earlier, sheep vanished, leaving only tufts of wool and a rot smell, and now the boy Vali is still missing. Rey suggests Grimwolves as a likely cause. Silla confirms her magic is real after the cohesion rite, and recalls Rey letting her sleep against him afterward. She spots an ice spirit and finds an upside-down protection rune traced in frost on the stable post, suggesting the spirit is watching or warning her. Brown Horse continues to reject Silla. Silla asks Rey to resume defensive training, and Rey begins drilling her with practice swords, correcting her stance and grip. They practice for an hour, establishing a daily routine. In Chapter 22, Silla returns to Harpa's home to begin learning how to express her Galder now that she is cohessed. Harpa explains that every Galdra's magic comes from a unique source shaped by Sunvald's blessing, and recounts the origin of the Ashen and Galder itself. She reveals that the Volsic bloodline carries an additional, poorly understood gift meant to preserve order in the kingdom, and that more than one Volsic now exists. Silla struggles to prime and express her magic, unable to clear her mind as impatience, guilt, and thoughts of her family overwhelm her. Harpa halts the lesson, stating Silla must first learn surrender and mental stillness. Meanwhile, Rey reflects on Silla's importance to the rebellion and his growing concern over missing livestock in Vali, recalling the unnatural rot associated with past threats. He decides to investigate the pasture where the sheep vanished. As they ride back down the mountain, Silla is discouraged. Rey offers evening sparring as a distraction, giving her renewed focus despite her frustration. In Chapter 23, Saga reflects on her alliance with Anna and begins searching for the identity of Queen Sina's liaison within the Clarenar. While observing Sina manipulate marriage plans for Princess Yrsa, Saga notes the Queen's calm duplicity and resolves that the liaison must be a high-ranking Clarenar officer. After Sina leaves the hall, Saga gains access to the Room of Records by claiming she is compiling a book on King Ivar's military achievements. She secretly removes Clarenar financial records to her chambers and initially searches for evidence of bribery through income and expenditures, but finds only endless fines, wasteful spending, and meaningless transactions. Exhausted and frustrated, Saga sleeps and dreams of being attacked, reliving her trauma. Upon waking, she realizes a new approach is needed. Instead of tracking money, she should search for Clarenar deaths and identify those who rose into newly vacated positions. Driven by this insight, Saga resumes her investigation through the night, determined to uncover the hidden liaison. In Chapter 24, Jonas wanders the streets of Kopa, drowning in grief, guilt, and anger after Ilias's death and his betrayal of the Blood Axe crew. He notices posters offering a reward for information about Rey, confirming the Clarenar have failed to capture him and are now seeking informants. In a mead hall near the garrison, Jonas overhears Clarenar officers discussing the ongoing hunt for Silla and her companion, noting sightings near Svangormer Pass and frustration that the warband has failed to find them. They mention the Black Cloak's growing impatience and the large reward being offered, as well as a weapon called Hindrium, meant to be used against Galdra. Jonas realizes the search likely points toward Kalasgarda, Rey's homeland. Tempted by the reward and the chance to reclaim his family's lands, Jonas wrestles with betraying Rey. Ultimately, he refuses to speak, leaves the hall, and departs shaken, whispering Kalasgard, but choosing, for now, not to sell out his former brother-in-arms. In Chapter 25, Saga meets Rurik in the secret passage to give him the promised map of Askeborg's tunnels. While waiting, she reflects on her progress investigating Queen Sina's liaison and confirms she has identified 3 Clarenar commandors whose sudden replacements suggest suspicious deaths. No signal from Anna has appeared, implying Saga's interference with the Queen's correspondence remains undiscovered and Isa has gained more time. When Rurik arrives, Saga confirms the forged letter was successfully sent and hands over the map. Their exchange reveals mutual tension, but they agree to protect each other's secrets, acknowledging the danger of exposure. Saga also demonstrates her sharp perception by identifying Rurik's lingering injury, which unsettles him. Rurik warns that knowledge can be dangerous, reinforcing the stakes of their covert dealings. After securing his promise of silence, Saga leaves the passageway, resolved to continue her investigation into the Clarenar leadership while maintaining secrecy about her role. In Chapter 26, Saga meets Queen Sina alone for Aroa in the Solarium, planning to use her sense to learn about the Clarenar. She drops her mental shields and hears Sina's private thoughts, confirming Sina is bruised again from Ivar's violence and survives by masking fear and displeasure. Sina abruptly focuses the meeting on Saga's womanly duties, and preparing her to marry Bjorn, warning Saga to project strength, sacrifice personal wishes, and remember she can be replaced. When Saga tries to steer the conversation toward governance and the Clarenar, Sina's thoughts reveal impatience that the warband has not reported, and that she may send the Black Cloak after Isa. Saga realizes the Queen's liaison to the Clarenar is called the Black Cloak, and hides her reaction as Sina briefly suspects Saga might have Galdur. Sina orders Saga and Bjorn to make a public entrance at Yrsa's birthday feast. Saga rushes out and finds the Falconry Tower's white linen signal flying. In Chapter 27, Rey takes Vig to the forest pasture where 24 sheep vanished. The fence is intact, there are no bodies or blood, and the rot stench still lingers, making Rey feel watched and noting. The area is unnaturally quiet with no birds. They find a large, circular depression where something heavy bedded down for days, then locate dung nearby, suggesting the creature ate the sheep whole and only left after resting. Rey insists the dung may contain clues about what happened to the sheep and possibly the missing boy Vali, so they haul it away on a sledge to examine later. While leaving, Rey and Vig argue bitterly about Rey abandoning home and Vig cowering in the north, until Vig hints Rey wants Silla and should claim her. Before it escalates further, Rey spots a carved rune on a tree. The symbol resembles protection, but inverted. Rey identifies it as the Death Rune. In Chapter 28, Saga meets Anna in Asla Tower after the white linen signal appears. Anna has intercepted 2 letters, but neither contains military orders or news of Isa. One summons a seamstress for a bridal gown in Svaldrin, and the other invites a Jarl's family to Princess Yrsa's birthday feast. Saga shares her theory that the Queen's liaison, called the Black Cloak, may be one of several commandors who replaced predecessors who died under suspicious circumstances. Anna reveals the Upresna is investigating the disappearance of Galdra taken into Clarenar custody but never executed, believing Queen Sina is stealing them to build a weapon or army. Saga adds what she knows about Svaldrin: experiments, herbs, Meisterlecke, and a traitor named Skreda. Anna confirms the Upresna will act. Saga learns her ability is called a Reader, a rare mind Galdra who can influence thoughts after cohesion. Anna raises the possibility of rescuing Saga, but Saga admits her fear of leaving Askaborg, though she secretly wants freedom. In Chapter 29, Saga leaves Asla Tower determined to access locked cabinets, especially Maester Alfson's, believing they hold critical secrets. In a hidden corridor, she is confronted by Cassandra Rurik, who reveals he knows she withheld tunnels from the map and demands the complete version. Saga admits the tunnels are her only refuge and refuses to give them all up. Realizing Rurik has experience breaking into restricted places, she asks him to teach her how to pick locks. As a gesture of goodwill, she adds 2 more tunnels to his map and promises to finish it after he helps her. Rurik agrees, but insists on a Zagadkian tradition to seal the deal: a kiss. The encounter escalates into an intense, mutual moment before Saga stops it, recognizing the danger of losing control. They part with their bargain intact. Alone in the tunnels, Saga feels exhilarated, aware she chose both rebellion and Rurik. In Chapter 30, Rey and Vig examine the dung taken from the pasture and confirm the missing sheep were eaten whole. Among wool, hooves, and bone fragments, Rey finds a hollow fang, indicating the creature consumed a venomous serpent elsewhere before coming north. This deepens the mystery rather than resolving it. Rey and Vig reconcile their earlier argument, acknowledging their different choices and lingering grief. Their uneasy peace is interrupted when Runny arrives with news that another woman, Astrid, has vanished along with sheep, confirming the threat is ongoing and escalating. Rey decides to investigate despite the danger of exposure. Meanwhile, Silla struggles with her training under Harpa, unable to master her Galdur and growing frustrated. Learning of Astrid's disappearance steels her resolve. Back at the Shield home, Rey refuses to let Silla join the search, insisting she remain hidden. To channel her agitation, they spar. During training, Silla lets emotion control her, but ultimately manages to outmaneuver Rey briefly, proving progress even as the tension between them intensifies. In Chapter 31, Saga meets Cassandra Rurik in a hidden passage to learn how to pick locks so she can access Maester Alfson's locked cabinet. She reflects on Queen Sina presenting her with a bridal veil, reinforcing the urgency of uncovering secrets before her forced marriage. Rurik arrives late and brings Yuri Rovgolod as a chaperone, swearing him to secrecy about the tunnels. While traveling through the passages to Ravine Tower, Rurik hints at generational unrest in Zagadka and his desire for change, but refuses to reveal what he seeks in Askaborg. At Ravine Tower, Rurik quickly opens the locked door and begins teaching Saga lockpicking. After repeated failure, he physically guides her hands, helping her successfully open the lock. Saga fulfills her bargain by giving Rurik the completed tunnel map. He thanks her and offers a quiet, personal farewell sentiment before leaving with Rav, leaving Saga with new skills, lingering uncertainty, and a sense that their alliance may soon end. In Chapter 32, Silla and Rey fall into a tense routine as Rey searches with Vig for the missing Astrid and Vali, while Silla continues failing to control her Galder under Harpa's guidance. Though her sword training improves, Silla cannot surrender her mind, which remains haunted by tormenting memories and voices. Harpa changes tactics, ordering Silla to chop wood and then enter a steam bath to force physical exhaustion and surrender. While chopping, Silla encounters an ice spirit that behaves agitatedly and draws an inverted protection rune, warning her of danger. Before Silla can act, Harpa intervenes and forces her into the steam bath. Inside, exhaustion and heat trigger Silla's power to surface as white light, but she cannot control it. Harpa insists Silla fails because she continues to fight rather than surrender. Overwhelmed by bitterness and despair, Silla realizes her sacrifices have not been enough and her struggle to master her power remains unresolved. In Chapter 33, a leak cancels public prayers, letting Saga complete a private letting and then discover Anna's signal linen in the Western Wing. She prepares for a major feast honoring the Zagadkians and the Grain Treaty, hoping for new intelligence. Before the feast, Saga hears a bitter inner voice urging surrender, then doubts her sanity when Arlog's thoughts sound different. At the feast, Saga sits beside Bjorn while Rurik entertains Yrsa, and nobles openly judge Saga. Jarl Skotha appears, a former ally of King Carton rumored to have betrayed Saga and Isa's hiding place to the Urkins. Bjorn mentions the Undercroft was ransacked, making Saga suspect Rurik. Ivar arrives and announces the Zagadkians will be inducted as honorary Brothers of the Hearth and given sacrifices for safe travel. Rurik protests, but Rav smooths it over and the sacrifices proceed, including a man killed at the altar. Ivar promotes Yrsa's upcoming 18th birthday feast. Skotha later reveals his son-in-law is Commander Hilja of Svaldrin, linking Hilja to Saga's suspects. Skotha reports a lead on the thief, and Ivar leaves with Bjorn to investigate, summoning Magnus. In Chapter 34, Saga slips away from the ongoing feast to meet Anna in Asla Tower. Anna reports that Shadowhounds tracked Meister Leka to an abandoned fort near Svaldrin, where beds, alchemical tools, and a sulfuric stench were found, along with a mass grave of murdered Galdra. They believe the Black Cloak coordinated the transfer of Galdra from Clarenar custody to Leka, but Leka has fled. Anna brings intercepted packages from Maester Alfson containing instructions for liquefied hindrium, a Galdr neutralizing metal, and alpine catspaw. Saga alters the addresses to protect Isa. Anna reveals the truth. Saga's sister Isa is alive because Anna's younger sister was sacrificed in her place. Anna promises to help extract Saga once their enemies are exposed. After Anna leaves, Rurik appears and reveals he burned his ship to delay his departure. Bells sound below, and Saga sees Jarl Skotha wearing a black wolfskin cloak, realizing he is the Black Cloak. In Chapter 35, Rey prepares for the day, expecting the creature to strike again on its 7-day cycle, while Silla struggles emotionally and mentally, unable to focus her Galdr or find comfort. During training with Harpa, Silla's bitterness and unresolved grief deepen, and she resents Harpa's insistence on surrender. Their session is interrupted when warriors Hef and Kettle bring in Freydis, gravely wounded after a beast attacked her and slaughtered sheep. Harpa confirms the injuries are fatal, and organizes a mercy death to ease Freydis' suffering. While gathering supplies, Silla secretly steals a jar of scald leaves, revealing her relapse into old habits. Harpa directs Silla to help prepare a sedative tea for Freydis, allowing the family time to say goodbye. Afterward, Harpa dismisses Silla, telling her not to return until she is ready to stop running. As Silla rides away, Freydis' final moments begin, and the reality of the creature's renewed attacks becomes undeniable. In Chapter 36, Rey returns from patrol with Vig, bringing a crate of newly hatched chicks meant to cheer Silla, while remaining uncertain whether the creature's 7-day attack pattern is reliable. Upon reaching the shield home, Rey immediately senses something is wrong with Silla, who reveals that Freydis has died from the creature's attack and that it left something inside her body. Rey decides not to go to Harpa's, choosing to stay with Silla. They spar, but Silla grows frustrated when Rey holds back and demands he stop letting her win. Rey overpowers her and forces her to rest, carrying her into the shield home. Confronted, Silla finally admits the truth of her torment. She believes Ilias died because of her. Rey firmly rejects this, explaining Ilias' death was the result of his own battlefield choices, not Silla's fault. He urges her to release the guilt and forgive herself. When Rey leaves briefly to fetch the chicks, Silla withdraws behind the curtain, and Rey accepts that rest, not training, is what she needs most. In Chapter 37, Silla hides the stolen skilled leaves and battles intense cravings and guilt after taking them from Harpa's while Freydis lay dying. She tries to use Brown Horse accepting a treat as a sign to resist the leaves, but the horse refuses, and Silla nearly gives in. Instead, she chooses to stop running from her grief, confronts her father's voice in her mind, admits his lies hurt her, and speaks forgiveness for him and herself. The emotional release exhausts her, and the jar spills on the stable floor just as Rey arrives and sees the leaves. Silla admits they came from Harpa's and that she did not take any. Rey burns the leaves to ash and comforts her as she breaks down. When Rey helps her up, Brown Horse approaches, tugs Silla's hair, then calmly takes an oatcake from her hand. Silla takes this as a sign of hope and renames Brown Horse Dawn, embracing new beginnings. In Chapter 38, Jonas frequents a crowded mead hall in Copa to eavesdrop on Clarenar warriors investigating the Slatrari. By sitting near Captain Ulfar, Jonas learns the Clarenar are frustrated by false leads about Rey's whereabouts, none of which are accurate. As the investigation stalls, Jonas begins to suspect Rey deliberately hid his identity and used the Bloodaxe crew as cover, possibly working with Galdor rebels. His trust erodes as he reconsiders past meetings with Magnus Hansen and realizes Rey may have manipulated everyone around him. Ulfar receives a cryptic letter ordering the use of Alpine Catspaw, but its purpose is unclear. Ulfar then reveals a new lead claiming the Slatrari comes from Haith, information Jonas immediately recognizes as deliberate misdirection. Convinced Rey has allies protecting him and bitter over Ilias' death and Rey's perceived hypocrisy, Jonas finally betrays Rey. He tells Captain Ulfar the truth. The man they seek is in Kalasgard. In Chapter 39, Silla wakes from a peaceful dream feeling rested and accepts that healing will require patience and self-compassion. She spends the morning bonding with Runny over the borrowed chicks and cooks the day meal for the first time in weeks. Rey returns, eats heartily, and resumes sparring with her, treating her normally and refusing to let her win. Ice spirits gather nearby, and Silla takes their presence and the disappearance of her offerings as good omens. At the stables, Dawn accepts a treat from Silla's hand again, reinforcing her sense of hope. Silla returns to Harpa and declares herself ready to learn, and Harpa accepts her without reproach. Over several days, Silla practices mindfulness, chopping wood, and enduring her memories instead of suppressing them. On the 6th day, while surrendering fully in the steam bath, Silla finally expresses her Galdor, releasing visible motes of light. She reports her success to Harpa, who confirms she has truly begun. In Chapter 40, Rey confirms the creature hunting Kalasgard is a serpent after matching a fang taken from Freydis' abdomen to one found earlier, and he and Vig build a baited trap in a narrow valley to catch it. That night, Rey resists sharing Silla's bed, then is roused by Vig claiming another boy is missing near Archer's Point. Rey realizes it is only 6 days since the last attack, but goes when Silla urges him. After he leaves, Silla hears a strange voice, and then 5 men burst into the shield home with birch bark sketches identifying her. Kettle reveals there was no missing boy, and they planned to deliver her to Copa for a reward. Silla kills one attacker, then is forced into a duel with Ketil, who is a shadow hound and turns invisible. In battle, Silla successfully expresses her Galder, blasting Ketil and exposing him. Rey returns, unleashes deadly smokefire Galder, and kills the attackers. Rey and Vig relocate Silla to Vig's steading and plan to bind and question Ketil because the wards have been compromised. In Chapter 41, Silla wakes injured but safe in Vig's room after the attack, realizing Rey stayed awake nearby. Rey admits he questioned and killed Ketil to prevent any loose ends, revealing his likeness is known because he once let someone live in Copa. Silla deduces Ketil recognized her at Harpa's when Freitas was brought there, forcing them out of the shield home. Rey offers to leave Kalasgarda if she wishes, but Silla chooses to stay, determined to continue her Galder training with Harpa. She confirms she successfully expressed her power during the fight, saving herself. Exhausted and drunk, Rey finally lies down and Silla comforts him, helping him rest. Rey reveals guilt over the blood on his hands and admits killing has not eased his darkness. Silla reassures him, affirming his worth and goodness. Rey falls asleep holding her hand, and the chapter ends with a quiet moment of mutual safety and deepening trust. In Chapter 42, Cassandra Rurik's burned ship triggers a heavy Klerner presence in Askaborg, halting Saga's plans and trapping her in her chambers while the arsonist is hunted. When riots erupt over food shortages, drawing the guards out of the castle, Saga seizes the opportunity to act. She sneaks through the corridors and breaks into Maester Alfson's study. Inside, Saga discovers detailed scrolls describing the extraction and cultivation of a creature called the microbe, which feeds on Galder, produces offspring, and requires sulfuric heat. The instructions reveal Galdra are used as unwilling hosts, harvested, mutilated, and consumed so others may gain their magic, with alpine catspaw used to block healing. Saga realizes the missing Galdra and mass graves are part of this process and that the operation has moved to Roxgard. She finds an ancient, partially destroyed manuscript describing corrupted beasts and Kraugr, which exerts a disturbing pull on her. When Alfson returns, Saga escapes through a hidden door and descends into underground corridors, reaching a prison-like passage and opening a final door deeper below. In Chapter 43, Saga enters a hidden chamber beneath Askaborg and discovers rows of manacled beds holding missing Galdra. She confirms the reaping is underway when she finds a restrained woman with sulfuric stench, blue-veined skin, and rectangular wounds matching Alfson's diagrams, proving flesh is carved from living hosts. The woman attacks in madness, drawing attention. Cassandra Rurik intervenes, hiding Saga beneath furs as guards arrive. Meister Alfson and a handler, Gorm, administer Losna to sedate the patients and order preparations to move them to Roxgard, then summon Skotha's hounds. Rurik uses the overpowering stench to mask their presence, confusing the hounds until they leave. Afterward, Rurik insists the victims are beyond saving and forces Saga to retreat, warning her not to return. He escorts her back toward her chambers, admitting he has not found what his people seek. Traumatized but resolved, Saga decides the chamber is proof enough to expose Queen Sina and plans to tell King Ivar at the first chance. In Chapter 44, Jonas is repeatedly interrogated by Kaptein Ulfar about Rey's tattoos and insists he never knew Rey was burning people alive. Frustrated by the Klerner's incompetence and their obedience to the Queen's distant commands, Jonas argues the hunt is being mismanaged through deliberate misdirection. He openly criticizes the Queen's interference and pressures Ulfar to reclaim control of the search from the north. Jonas claims intimate knowledge of Rey's tactics and warns that brute force will fail, especially now that Rey's Galder is known. He proposes a calculated strategy using numbers and surprise rather than direct confrontation. Jonas demands half the reward in advance, citing past betrayal by the Klerner under Commander Valf. To prove his insight, Jonas reveals Rey's weakness, his dead younger brother Christian, buried in Kalasgarda. He advises surveilling the burial grounds to confirm Rey's location. Once confirmed, Jonas promises to deliver the knowledge needed to defeat Rey, emphasizing that this hunt is personal, not just for money. In Chapter 45, Rey wakes in Vig's room hungover and shaken after killing Ketil, haunted by guilt and the blood on his hands. He recalls interrogating Ketil, who admitted recognizing Rey from a birch etching and plotting to capture him, then shifting plans after spotting Silla at Harpa's. Ketil swore no one else in Kalasgard knew of the reward, but Rey killed him to leave no loose ends. Rey has already told Vig, Runny, and Gita that Silla is Isavolsic and ordered they treat her no differently. Gita confronts Rey about his feelings for Silla and challenges his belief that he is unworthy of her because of his violence. Outside, Rey finds Silla sparring with Vig and learns more about how her breaker Galdur feels different from Vig's. Despite jealousy and inner conflict, Rey insists the serpent is due to feed that day, orders preparations, and heads out to patrol and set the trap. In Chapter 46, Saga resolves to expose Meister Alfson's atrocities to King Ivar, believing the king's hatred of Galdur will make him act against Queen Sina. When she goes to Ivar's study, she learns the king is away and instead encounters Magnus. Forced to proceed, Saga confides in him, revealing Alfson's hidden chamber beneath his study, where Galdra are chained, carved, and harvested, using Mikrub to steal their Galdur. Magnus initially listens and admits Alfson is already under scrutiny, giving Saga hope. However, he abruptly dismisses her claims as delusions, warns her to keep silent, and implies consequences if she speaks again. As Saga flees, fragments of overheard thoughts and a sudden realization strike her. Her forgotten satchel was discovered, and Magnus knows everything. She finally understands the truth she missed before. Magnus Hansen is the Black Cloak. By seeking help, Saga has unknowingly exposed herself and all her knowledge to the enemy. In Chapter 47, after Kettle's attack, Silla stays several nights at Gita's farm, while Rey and Vig wait unsuccessfully for the serpent to return. When it remains absent, Rey allows Silla to return to the shield home, becoming more protective and sharing a bed with her for safety. Silla continues training with Harpa and learns to stabilize expressed Galdur into bonded orbs of light. 5 nights later, Silla dreams of Rey imprisoned and mutilated, awakening to find him gone. Runny tells her Rey has gone to visit his brother Christian's burial mound. A black hawk appears, which Silla interprets as an omen, and she insists on following Rey to the burial grounds. There, Rey confronts his long unvisited grief over his parents and brother, admitting Silla inspired him to return. Their emotional bond deepens, and Silla kisses Rey, who reciprocates. The moment is abruptly interrupted when Runny cries out and Rey shields Silla, warning her to flee to the trees, signaling imminent danger. In Chapter 48, Rey recognizes the ambush at the burial ground as an organized attack by wolf feeders, using archers whose scarpling quills suppress Galdur. He orders Silla to hide while he engages 8 attackers, killing several with smoke and steel, before being struck by a quill that silences his magic. As more enemies close in, Runny and Vig arrive to reinforce him. During the chaos, Silla leaves cover to intervene and instinctively manifests her Galdur as a frostfire sword, killing an assailant and saving Rey. Together, Rey, Vig, and Runny eliminate the remaining wolf feeders and archers. Afterward, Rey realizes his Galdur remains suppressed and retrieves a quill to have Harpa identify a counter. Back at the shield home, Vig urges them to inform Calf due to the public deaths, forcing the issue of Silla's identity. Rey confronts Silla for disobeying him. She asserts his life is worth the risk. Their argument turns into a charged reconciliation, ending with mutual admission of desire. In Chapter 49, Silla and Rey give in to their mutual desire and sleep together, confirming they both want this. Afterwards, they lie together in the shield home, calmer and more emotionally open. Silla studies Rey's chest tattoo and learns it is his Halda, a reserve created by powdered Halda stone tattooed into skin to store Galdur outside a person's source for use in battle. Silla bites Rey's shoulder during their intimacy and apologizes, and Rey thanks her for saving his life again during the burial grounds attack. The moment is interrupted when Rey remembers his Galdur is still missing after being hit by the scarpling quill. Feeling the unnatural absence where his magic should be, Rey becomes urgent and abruptly leaves, telling Silla they must go to Harpa's to identify what was done to his magic and find a way to counter it. In Chapter 50, Jonas learns that all contact with the wolf feeders has been lost after they were sent to Kalasgard. Kaptein Ulfar and Hagbard accuse Jonas of betrayal, believing he deliberately led the warriors into a trap. Jonas denies this and forces Ulfar to admit the wolf feeders were ordered to wait at the burial grounds, follow Rey, and report back, but were not clearly instructed to avoid combat. 24 seasoned warriors are now presumed dead, likely defeated by Rey and his companion, despite the wolf feeders possessing liquid hindrium. Jonas concludes that the mission failed because Ulfar ignored his strategic advice. Realizing the Clarenar leadership is incompetent, Jonas accepts that he may need to confront Rey himself to succeed. The chapter ends with new intelligence from Cunafjord. The Queen's Chosen will arrive in 2 days, restoring the element of surprise. In Chapter 51, Silla trains at Harpa's while worrying about Rey, whose Galder has not yet fully returned after the fight with the Wolf Feeders. During practice, Silla successfully shapes her Galder into a sword of white light and realizes she can intuitively guide motes of light into stable forms, confirming the blade as the natural expression of her power. Harpa recognizes the weapon as rare and exceptional and has Silla practice summoning it repeatedly. By evening, Rey's Galder begins to recover, but he remains distant, deepening Silla's unease. Later, Rey joins her for sparring and presents her with Labrinja armor he commissioned, signaling trust in her abilities. During the fight, Rey admits his withdrawal was driven by fear of losing his magic and his habit of facing such crises alone. He clarifies his feelings for Silla and affirms his commitment to her. Reassured, Silla accepts him and they leave the yard together. In Chapter 52, Rey and Silla come together after a day marked by fear and emotional distance caused by Rey temporarily losing his Galder. Rey acknowledges how deeply the loss of his magic shook his identity and realizes he hurt Silla by shutting her out after she trusted him. Their intimacy becomes a turning point, reinforcing mutual trust and emotional vulnerability. Rey takes care to ensure Silla feels safe, valued, and ready, while Silla reciprocates by asserting her own desire and agency. Their encounter confirms that both are choosing each other deliberately, not out of fear or confusion. Afterward, they speak openly about their flaws. Rey promises to work on letting Silla in, and Silla admits her lingering fear from Jonas's betrayal, but resolves not to let it control her. Rey reassures her he will not give her reason to doubt him. The chapter ends with a quiet moment of shared magic, symbolizing balance between Rey's darkness and Silla's light and reaffirming their growing bond. In Chapter 53, Rey and Silla share a quiet morning that highlights growing intimacy and trust. Rey learns from Vig that the serpent has struck again and that there is a lead on a witness, but more urgently. Uprisna chieftain Kalf has summoned Rey to account for Kettle and the dead wolf feeders. Rey asks Silla to attend the Uprisna meeting and reveal her identity as Isa so they can gain protection, but she refuses, admitting she needs more time. Their argument leaves Silla shaken. While calming her mind using Harpa's techniques, Silla unexpectedly makes contact with Saga through a shared mental connection, confirming Saga is alive, imprisoned, and in danger. Saga admits forging orders that sent the wolf feeders away and fears the Queen's retaliation. The bond fades, leaving Silla resolved. Realizing her fear is secondary to Saga's danger, Silla decides to face her role. She tells Rey she will attend the Uprisna meeting and explain everything. In Chapter 54, Saga learns that Cass's hidden room has been cleared and all evidence removed, leaving her with no proof tying Alfson and Sina to the missing Galdra. Realizing her satchel was discovered and her involvement is now known, Saga fears Sina will retaliate and place Anna under scrutiny. Unable to contact Anna without exposing her, Saga prepares to face the consequences. At day-meal, King Ivar is absent while Magnus sits comfortably beside Queen Sina, confirming his growing power. Sina assigns Thora to escort Saga everywhere, effectively placing her under guard. Sina then announces an execution to be held in Askeborg's pits and insists Saga attend, deliberately provoking her trauma. Saga conceals her distress and maintains a compliant facade. Rurik observes her closely, clearly suspicious but restrained. The chapter ends with Saga recognizing she is being watched, controlled, and deliberately tested by the Queen. In Chapter 55, Rey and Vig go to the Split Skull to question Biala Greylocks, the only witness to the serpent attacks near Kalasgard. Despite the barkeep dismissing Biala as unreliable, Rey presses him for details, explaining that recent attacks have left one woman dead and a child missing. Biala describes seeing a massive serpent with blue scales, white fangs, and blood-red eyes near the stockade walls. Crucially, he adds that a swarm of ice spirits appeared and drove the creature away, forcing it into the river. This detail unsettles Rey, as ice spirits have recently been gathering around Silla in increasing numbers. Realizing the connection may be significant and dangerous, Rey abruptly ends the questioning. Concluding that Silla may be tied to the serpent's behavior, Rey decides they must return to Harpa's immediately, prioritizing her safety over further investigation. In Chapter 56, Silla follows Harpa's instructions to fetch meltwater from Jokul's lake, believing the task will help develop her blade breaker ability despite the danger of the serpent. Inside Jokel's ice caves, Silla encounters agitated ice spirits who lead her deeper after she hears a child's cries for help. She discovers the serpent's hidden lair, filled with carcasses, shed snakeskin, and cracked eggs, realizing the great serpent has been nesting and that some hatchlings have already emerged. Silla finds skeletal remains marked with inverted protection runes and identifies the resting place of the missing children, recovering Vali's cloak pin as proof. From a fissure in the cave, Silla senses the Dark One, who attempts to lure and claim her, revealing knowledge of her mother. Resisting the compulsion, Silla escapes as a serpent egg begins to hatch, determined to warn Rey and bring help. In Chapter 57, Silla flees Jokel's ice caves as newly hatched serpents pursue her, their cries and the Dark One's voice attempting to lure her back. She summons her blade of cold light and, aided by ice spirits attacking the serpent's vulnerable undersides, manages to kill one. Silla collapses part of the cave entrance, temporarily trapping the remaining hatchlings inside, then escapes the mountain to seek help. While descending, the serpent's bite takes effect, flooding her body with heat and venom and weakening her mind. As the poison worsens, the Dark One whispers to her and Silla slips into a vision of her childhood as Princess Svala. She relives a memory in which her grandfather lured her to a fountain and slit her throat as part of a life-for-a-life sacrifice before being killed himself. The chapter ends with Silla overwhelmed by venom and memory, her consciousness fading as the truth of her near-death past resurfaces. In Chapter 58, Saga is trapped under constant surveillance by Thor and forced to attend an execution at Askaborg's pits, knowing refusal would provoke Queen Sina. The pits, once a place of celebration, now serve as a site of public torture and death. While seated on the dais, Saga realizes the execution is her punishment. Among the condemned women is Anna. Saga is unable to intervene and secretly drops her mental barriers, using her sense to connect to Anna's mind. As the crowd stones the prisoners, Saga experiences Anna's pain through the bond and holds onto her consciousness until it fades completely. Anna dies believing she will be reunited with her sister. Saga survives the ordeal but is left physically weakened, bleeding, and emotionally shattered. Queen Sina watches her suffering with satisfaction. After the execution, Saga collapses in her chambers, fully aware that the Queen now knows exactly how to hurt her. In Chapter 59, Rey waits anxiously while Silla lies unconscious after collapsing near Harpa's home. He learns from Harpa that Silla was bitten by a serpent hatchling and is suffering from chaos magic venom, which should pass with time. Harpa admits sending Silla to Jokel was a mistake and reveals she sensed dangerous disturbances there. Rey confronts Harpa about her recklessness, and she expresses regret over past failures as a guardian and her desire for Rey's happiness, acknowledging Silla's importance to him. Harpa also shows Rey a tapestry she is weaving, revealing growing dark threads spreading from Jokel across the kingdom. Silla awakens, frightened but alive, and urgently tells Rey that Jokel's caves contain the serpent's nest and hatchlings, and that they must return with help. In Chapter 60, Silla accompanies Rey to the Upraezna meeting at the Split Skull to seek help against the serpent threat. Rey is questioned by Kalf and other Galdra about his return, Ketil's death, and the presence of the wolf feeders. When suspicion turns against Rey, Silla intervenes, presents Vali's cloak pin as proof, and demonstrates her Ashbringer power, though imperfectly. Pressed further, Silla reveals her true identity as Isa Volsic and recounts her flight from Skarstad, the Clarnar pursuit, and the events that led her north with Rey. She argues that her identity is secondary to the real danger, serpent hatchlings beneath Jokel threatening Kalasgard. Though the council remains divided, her testimony silences Kalf. Afterward, Hef approaches Silla, disavows Ketil, apologizes, and asks her to describe the cave in detail, signaling that the Upraezna may be willing to act. In Chapter 61, the Upraezna agrees to act. Warriors gather around Silla and Rey, and a plan is formed to return to Jokel immediately. They will dig out the collapsed cave entrance, kill the serpent hatchlings and the mother, retrieve Astrid and Vali's bodies, and collapse the cavern roof over the chasm using Ashbringers, while breakers keep an escape route open. As the group disperses to prepare, Kalf privately welcomes Rey back, acknowledging his past actions. Rey recognizes Silla's courage and leadership in uniting the Upraezna. Before meeting the others at the trailhead, Rey takes Silla to a hill overlooking Kalasgard, where the northern lights appear. The moment stirs memories of his brother Christian, whom he lost, and Rey shuts down emotionally, pushing Silla away out of fear of loss. Silla recognizes his deflection, refuses to leave, and walks ahead determined. Rey realizes his mistake and follows, resolved to fight the serpents first. In Chapter 62, Saga grieves Anna's death and realizes she is now isolated and exposed in Askeborg. Unable to contact the Opresna, and certain Queen Sina suspects her abilities, Saga is confronted by Rurik, who secretly enters her chambers to check on her safety. He correctly deduces that Saga is Galdra and that she took Anna's pain during the execution. Rurik urges Saga to flee with him by ship, warning she will be killed if she remains. Saga refuses to abandon Iselder or her sister Isa, revealing that Isa is alive and in danger. Rurik offers protection and aid for Isa, but insists Saga must leave. Saga negotiates passage not to Zagadka, but to Midfjord, promising information in return. Rurik reluctantly agrees. They plan her escape for the morning after Yrsa's birthday feast. Saga accepts that leaving Askeborg is now unavoidable. In Chapter 63, Silla joins Rey and the Opresna in a night assault on Jokul to destroy the Serpent Nest. The cave entrance she previously collapsed remains sealed, and the group begins digging it open. Rey outlines the plan to kill the hatchlings, retrieve Astrid and Vali's bodies, and collapse the cavern over the chasm. The excavation destabilizes the ice, allowing hatchlings to burst out in overwhelming numbers. A chaotic battle erupts as dozens of serpents swarm the Galdra far more than expected, and several escape into the forest. Ice spirits warn Silla of movement beneath the frozen lake. The mother serpent erupts from under the ice, causing the surface to shatter. Silla is knocked into the freezing water and attacked. She fights underwater, stabbing the serpent's underbelly and forcing it to retreat. Severely weakened and out of air, Silla reaches the surface only to realize she is trapped beneath the ice, facing imminent death. In Chapter 64, Silla falls beneath the frozen lake after the mother serpent attacks. Rey ignores the danger and reaches the ice hole, guided by frantic ice spirits. With help from Kalf, Ranver, Vig, and Eric, Rey melts through the ice and pulls Silla from the water. She is unconscious and not breathing, but Rey finds a pulse and revives her with chest compressions. He immediately works to prevent hypothermia, stripping off her wet clothes, wrapping her in cloaks, and using his fire galder and body heat to warm her. Silla regains consciousness and stabilizes. While Rey stays with her, the Opresna collapses the cavern over the chasm and recovers Astrid and Vali's bodies. They count 87 hatched eggs, only 22 hatchlings killed, meaning 65 escaped. Rey realizes the serpents travel by water. The group spreads warnings across the north while Rey carries Silla safely down the mountain. In Chapter 65, Jonas trains Clarenar warriors in Copa, reclaiming his confidence and battle focus while sparring with Hagbard. He reflects on his past with the Blood Axe crew, his oath to his grandfather, and his vow of vengeance for Ilias's death. Jonas is working with the Clarenar to capture Rey and Silla in exchange for payment, which he intends to use to reclaim his family's lands. He briefs the Queen's elite chosen on Rey, revealing Rey is the feared Slatrari, a master combatant who fights unpredictably, uses multiple weapons, wields fire magic, and becomes reckless when protecting others. Though questioned for his past loyalty to Rey, Jonas provides detailed weaknesses and emphasizes that Rey does not know Jonas has betrayed him. Jonas insists the attack must be patient and calculated, not rushed like the Wolf Feeder's failed assault. The Clarenar will train, wait, and strike only when Rey makes a mistake. In Chapter 66, Silla wakes in the Shield Home after the battle with the Mother Serpent and finds Rey sitting beside her, having stayed through the day to watch over her. He confirms the chasm beneath Jokul has been collapsed, though many serpent hatchlings escaped and are now being hunted across the north by Vig and others. As they talk, Rey finally opens up about his brother Christian, revealing that Christian used skilled leaves, suffered visions of their dead parents, and died while Rey was away fighting, a guilt Rey has carried ever since. Silla challenges Rey's belief that Christian's death is his responsibility and urges him to release his anger and self-blame. Rey admits his fear of loving Silla and losing her, but confesses that he wants a future with her and will stand beside her whether she chooses rest or battle. Silla admits her own fear and agrees they can face it together, reaffirming their bond and choosing to move forward as partners. In Chapter 67, Silla and Rey consummate their relationship, solidifying the emotional commitment they reached after the battle at Jokul. Rey confirms Silla is certain about being with him, and their intimacy becomes a deliberate choice rather than an impulsive act. Their union is marked by mutual trust, reassurance, and vulnerability, reinforcing that they are choosing one another despite fear, danger, and uncertainty. Rey explicitly frames their connection as a promise, not merely desire, and Silla reciprocates by affirming she wants him fully and without hesitation. The scene underscores that they are no longer avoiding what they feel, but embracing it, accepting both the risk and the strength that comes with it. By the end of the chapter, Silla is physically recovered from the cold and near death and emotionally grounded, while Rey has moved past doubt and self-denial. Together, they emerge bonded as partners, prepared to face the threats still looming over them as a united front. In Chapter 68, Silla trains with Vig and Runny to develop her Bladebreaker abilities, but struggles to access her full strength because she does not truly fear Vig. The group discusses the aftermath of the serpent attack. 8 hatchlings have been killed, but dozens remain at large, and the wounded mother serpent is believed to be moving through underground waterways connected to Jelkel's lake. During training, Runny startles Silla, triggering her Galder and summoning her Frostfire sword. Silla discovers the blade can cut through nearly anything, including stone, before dismissing it. Runny proposes traveling with Silla and Rey to Copa to provide protection and alliances, which Vig reluctantly supports, choosing to remain in the north to hunt the remaining hatchlings and secure the chasm. Rey confirms plans to return to Copa, where Jarl Håkon may help rescue Silla's sister. The chapter ends with Silla and Rey reaffirming their partnership and shared momentum toward the next stage of their journey. In Chapter 69, Silla enters Harpa's cabin to seek answers about her visions, her mental link with Saga, and the serpent attacks. She finds Harpa in a deep trance at her loom, weaving a tapestry showing 4 figures: a serpent, a dragon, a tree, and a queen. Compelled by a recurring phrase, a life for a life, Silla touches the tapestry and is pulled into a vision. She witnesses her mother, Queen Svala Volsic, in a hidden stone chamber during the Urken siege, desperate to protect her daughters. Svala summons the Dark One, Myrkur, and agrees to a bargain at great cost. The entity accepts but twists the terms, refusing Svala's life. Silla awakens to Rey and Harpa having collapsed. She recounts her visions, including King Hrolf's pact, and attempt to kill Svala. Harpa realizes Myrkur has threaded chaos through the Volsic bloodline for generations, and warns that Rokur, the twilight of the world, is coming. In Chapter 70, Saga prepares to attend Princess Yrsa's birthday feast at Askeborg, knowing it is her last night before escaping with Rurik. The feast marks Yrsa's coming of age and draws nobles from across Isildur, while Saga remains under strict surveillance by Thorir on Queen Sina's orders. Sina controls Saga's appearance, seating, and movement, forcing her to play the role of a compliant future bride and ensuring guards block her exit. Saga steels herself to endure the night, planning to take the drugged Roa the next day so Rurik can smuggle her onto his ship. Inside the crowded hearth hall, Saga witnesses Urken displays of power and intimidation, including chained bears and ritual drums. Rurik discreetly reassures her that all plans for her escape are ready, warning her to remain careful. Their interaction is cut short when Princess Yrsa summons Rurik for a private conversation, leaving Saga to continue the charade alone. In Chapter 71, Princess Yrsa names Rurik as her champion, forcing him into a brutal Urken fighting trial meant to break him. Rurik defeats 4 opponents through strategy and endurance despite accumulating injuries. In the final round, he faces Thorir the Giant, an undefeated fighter favored by the crowd. The match turns deadly when a dagger is illegally introduced into the ring. Thorir uses it and wounds Rurik, but Rurik outmaneuvers him, forcing Thorir to impale himself and ring the bell, ending the fight. King Ivar publicly declares Rurik the victor, crowning him champion despite clear resentment. As part of the honor bestowed upon champions, Ivar unveils a ceremonial rite. Saga panics when she realizes the honor involves drinking from King Carton's skull. Overwhelmed and terrified for Rurik and herself, Saga flees the hall through an unguarded courtyard exit as the ceremony is announced. In Chapter 72, Saga flees the feast into the rain after seeing King Carton's skull, triggering a severe panic response and resurfacing trauma from the day Magnus Hearteater branded her hands and dehumanized her after her family's execution. Overwhelmed, she collapses in the gardens and eventually finds refuge at Sunvald's fountain, where the rain briefly restores her sense of freedom. Rurik finds her outside and reassures her that he refused to drink from the skull. When her panic resurges, he grounds her physically and calms her breathing. They share an intense, consensual kiss that deepens their connection, though Saga remains torn between desire and the need for safety. Rurik notices the scars on her hands, demands to know who hurt her, and Saga finally reveals Magnus's name and the truth of her branding and lack of justice. Rurik is furious, but comforts her and apologizes for past words. Their moment is cut short when Yrsa witnesses them and flees, forcing Saga and Rurik to leave immediately. In Chapter 73, Saga reveals the truth of her past to Rurik after he notices the scars on her hands. She admits Magnus Hearteater branded her during the aftermath of her family's execution, and that neither King Ivar nor Queen Sina punished him. Rurik is enraged but restrains himself, apologizes for calling her a pet, and vows she is not defined by what was done to her. Their moment of intimacy and trust is abruptly cut short when Princess Yrsa witnesses them together and flees, forcing Saga and Rurik to leave the gardens immediately. The chapter then shifts to Jonas and Kopa, overseeing Clarenar forces. He inspects new supplies including Hindrium-tipped scarpling quills that can disable Galder and Berskium powder for sigil rings. Despite lingering memories of the Blood Axe crew, Jonas recommits to his mission. A report arrives from the north identifying Rey's movements. Jonas recognizes it as genuine intelligence and declares it the advantage they need to capture Rey and Silla. In Chapter 74, Saga faces the consequences of fleeing the feast and being seen with Rurik. Queen Sina orders Saga's belongings removed, stripping her chamber of all comfort and making clear she has no sanctuary in Askaborg. At the day meal, Saga arrives without gloves, openly displaying her scars. Sina and King Ivar confront her about kissing Rurik, and Saga admits the truth. Ivar accuses the Zagadkians of dishonor, claims they fled during the night, and declares the treaty broken. Saga realizes her planned escape has failed and Rurik is gone. Ivar formally dissolves Saga's betrothal to Prince Bjorn, then announces she will instead marry Magnus. Sina supports the decision, framing it as discipline. Magnus accepts, touching Saga possessively. Saga is left powerless, her future sealed. After the meal, alone and broken, Saga steps onto her balcony, overwhelmed by despair and convinced death is the only escape from Magnus and her captivity. In Chapter 75, Silla continues combat training under Harpa's guidance but struggles to focus as the implications of Rocker weigh on her. Harpa explains that Rocker is an ancient, recurring cataclysm beginning with frost and ending in fire, tied to Merkur's awakening and the emergence of dark creatures through cracks in the world. She believes the Volsic bloodline carries a lost blessing from Sunvald, capable of opposing Merkur, which is why Merkur has interfered with Silla's ancestors and seeks access to Silla's mind. Rey acknowledges the theory explains the serpent attack, the ice spirit's interest in Silla, and the growing danger in the western woods. Despite training progress, Silla doubts herself and her supposed role. Harpa urges her to accept the gods' gifts or continue struggling. During a lighter moment with Rey, Silla is abruptly overwhelmed by a powerful intrusive grief tied to Isa, collapsing as a sense of fatalistic resolve resurfaces, suggesting her emotional and mental state remains dangerously fragile. In Chapter 76, Saga stands on her balcony preparing to jump when she hears a voice in her mind, Isa, alive and reaching out to her. Isa pleads with Saga not to give Magnus and the Urkins victory by ending her life and promises she will come for her. Through their mind-to-mind connection, Isa reveals she has endured imprisonment and suffering of her own and survived by holding on to the hope of seeing Saga again. Isa's love and resolve steady Saga's panic and despair, reminding her that Magnus's abuse is not her fault and that endurance is an act of defiance. Realizing Isa is alive and fighting for her, Saga agrees to survive one more day and steps down from the railing. After the connection fades, Saga resolves to fight for herself rather than surrender. Determined to act, she summons Arlaug and asks her to arrange a meeting with Queen Sina. In Chapter 77, Rey and Silla prepare to leave Nordor after making Harpa's home winter ready. Ice spirits remain behind to guard Yokel and report to Vig. Harpa and Rika object to Silla leaving before her training is complete, warning that Merkur may be luring her into danger, but Silla insists Saga needs her. Rey supports Silla's decision and commits to continuing her training himself. They assemble a group of 9 warriors, including Eric, Meyer, Runny, and Kalf, who appoints Vig as temporary chieftain. Harpa agrees to search the threads and warn them if she discovers anything new. Emotional farewells follow with Harpa, Rika, Gita, Vig, and Snorri, to whom Rey gifts a small sword. Rey and Silla reaffirm their bond and shared purpose. As they depart, a barn owl appears, seemingly guiding and blessing their journey, and they finally set out for Copa to begin plans to rescue Saga. In Chapter 78, Saga meets Queen Sina in the drawing room to plead against her forced engagement to Magnus. Saga realizes all escape plans are gone, and her only goal is survival. She appeals to Sina's claimed maternal concern, but through her sense perceives the Queen's contempt and predatory intent. Sina dismisses Saga's objections, framing the marriage as deserved punishment for shaming Bjorn and defying Urkin values. Through a fable, Sina makes clear she sees herself as a predator and Saga as prey. Saga confronts her, accusing her of harvesting Galdra magic, orchestrating Anna's execution, and conspiring with Alfson, Lekka, and Roxgard. Sina remains calm, knowing Saga has no proof and no credibility. She confirms the wedding will proceed and that Saga's power and protection are gone. Realizing Sina cannot be swayed, Saga leaves the chamber, severing any illusion of maternal bond and understanding she stands alone against the Queen. In Chapter 79, Silla and Rey travel through Svangormerpass toward Copa with their warriors when they encounter a massive swarm of serpent hatchlings blocking the trail. Attempting stealth fails, forcing the group into battle against dozens of serpents. The warriors form a shield wall while Ashbringers and Blade Breakers fight in coordinated defense. The mother serpent appears and kills Ranver and Nephi, thinning their ranks and trapping the group against the rock face. Realizing the mother can pick them off, Silla deliberately draws the serpent's attention, allowing Rey to climb onto its body and unleash his full Galder. Rey kills the mother serpent, but the hatchlings continue to swarm. An avalanche is triggered by a flaming arrow, burying the remaining serpents and ending the fight. The survivors regroup, believing they have been spared. As Silla and Rey share a moment of relief, a familiar voice reveals itself nearby, exposing an unseen manipulator who has been watching the battle all along. In Chapter 80, Saga attends her engagement feast beside King Ivar, surrounded by nobles loyal to Magnus. Magnus is late, heightening Saga's dread as gossip and contempt swirl around her. Saga struggles with isolation, but steadies herself by focusing on her mind link with Isa. She cautiously apologizes to Ivar, who explains that Saga cannot marry Bjorn because forgiving her would make Bjorn appear weak, while Magnus's fearsome reputation makes him suitable. As the feast continues, Saga suddenly loses control of her sense and is overwhelmed by the unfiltered thoughts of those around her, revealing cruelty, lust, and scorn directed at her. Panicking, she cannot re-erect her mental barriers. Yrsa approaches and admits she did not know about Magnus's abuse, expressing guilt and confirming Saga's fear. As Saga reels under the psychic assault, she meets Queen Sina's gaze and realizes Sina is deliberately reaching into her mind, signaling that Saga's secrets are fully exposed and that Sina is tightening her control. In Chapter 81, Silla comes face to face with Jonas in the mountains and realizes the serpent attack was a trap meant to weaken her group. Jonas arrives with 24 Clarenar warriors, blocking their retreat and revealing sheep carcasses used to lure the serpents and an avalanche triggered to seal the pass. Rey confirms they are outnumbered, exhausted, and low on Galder. Jonas taunts Silla and Rey, accusing Silla of causing Ilias's death and calling her a servant of Mirkr. He offers to spare the others if Silla surrenders herself. Rey openly claims Silla as his responsibility and vows to kill Jonas if he touches her. Silla refuses to yield, declaring she will fight for Isildur and the Galdra despite the odds. Jonas orders his Clarenar to dose Berskium powder, preparing for battle. Before combat begins, the Clarenar suddenly vanish, and Jonas reveals the Queen's Chosen have entered the fight, escalating the confrontation. In Chapter 82, Silla's group is attacked by invisible shadowhounds. Clarenar altered by Queen Sina into a new weapon. Jonas confirms the Queen now wants Silla destroyed. The enemy uses Berskium powder, Galder-quelling arrows, and quills that suppress magic. Silla realizes the Clarenar are infused with microbe that feeds on Galder, explaining the sulfur stench and the sudden collapse of her sword. The Galdra fight while exhausted and outnumbered. Rey's Galder is repeatedly disrupted, then fully extinguished when a quill pierces his neck. Runny is injured while protecting Silla. Jonas captures Silla and taunts her, but she breaks free and attacks him directly. Their duel leaves Silla outmatched, disarmed, and knocked down. As Jonas prepares to kill her, a growing thunderous roar reveals an avalanche. The mountain collapses, burying both sides in snow, and Silla is swallowed by darkness. In Chapter 83, Saga is overwhelmed at the engagement feast when her sense spirals out of control, trapping her in a flood of unfiltered thoughts. She retreats into her mind, where Isa calls to her and appears physically within Saga's inner world. Isa helps Saga realize Sina drugged her wine to force her Galder out of control, triggering Saga's long-delayed cohesion rite. Guided by Isa, Saga links her heart and mind and frees the winter-winged birds caged within her, claiming her true power and gaining control over her Galder. During the process, Saga senses Isa's danger and learns her sister is caught in an avalanche. Isa is forced to leave, but the sisters reaffirm their promise to reunite. Saga returns to the feast fully cohesed, aware of her power and focused on Sina, whose betrayal fuels Saga's anger. An ancient force within Saga awakens and claims her as the daughter of Svala. In Chapter 84, Silla regains consciousness buried beneath an avalanche, trapped in a small pocket of air with her Galder nearly exhausted. As panic and suffocation set in, Mirkr appears in her mind, revealing he has been waiting for both Silla and Saga to reach their full power to fulfill an ancient bargain made with Svala. He offers to save Silla from the snow if she grants him access to her heart. Silla initially refuses, accusing him of deception, but Mirkr shows her visions of Rey being tortured and killed if she dies. As her air runs out, Mirkr frames the choice as survival versus surrender, reminding her of her promise to reunite with Saga and her duty to fight for Isildur. With no strength left and death imminent, Silla chooses to live and keep her promise. She relinquishes the heart of her magic, allowing Mirkr entry and sealing the pact. In Chapter 85, Rey survives the avalanche, but is restrained and powerless as Silla is buried beneath the snow. Believing her dead, he struggles until the avalanche debris begins to move. Silla erupts from the snow, alive, but violently changed. She kills multiple Clarenar with unnatural speed and a blade of black flame, revealing Mirkr's influence. Her eyes are fully black. Dark veins spread across her skin, and her voice is no longer her own. Rey realizes something is wrong when she turns on Runny. Rey tackles Silla to protect the others, fighting her despite his restraints. Runny removes a scarpling quill suppressing Rey's Galder, briefly weakening the entity controlling Silla. As the black power resurges, Rey makes a desperate decision and strangles Silla until she loses consciousness, stopping Mirkr's control. Exhausted and devastated, Rey collapses beside her, grieving but relieved she is still alive. In Chapter 86, Saga hears a predatory voice within her claiming her as the daughter of Svala and offering vengeance. As Queen Sini orders, Saga seized and admits to drugging her wine, guards restrain Saga, and King Ivar demands her removal. The voice urges Saga to surrender control, promising revenge for her parents Anna and Brindis. Realizing she will be imprisoned and executed, Saga rejects being prey and embraces the creature's power. She relinquishes control, allowing the force of chaos to remake her Galder into something violent and uncontrollable. The guards are thrown aside as dark blue veins spread beneath her skin and her hair lifts with power. Saga unleashes a massive wave of black flame that engulfs the Great Hall, destroying much of it and killing or injuring many nobles. When the power fades, the voice praises her and withdraws to rest. Exhausted, Saga collapses unconscious amid the devastation she caused. In Chapter 87, Silla awakens in Ashfall Fortress after days of unconsciousness, discovering Rey has been watching over her. Rey confirms she survived the avalanche, but was briefly possessed by Mirkr after surrendering the heart of her magic to escape. Runny stopped the possession with a scarpling quill, and Rey brought Silla to Copa, where she slept for 7 days while restrained and dosed to suppress her Galder for safety. Silla cannot feel her magic and fears the bargain's consequences. Rey shares grim news from Sunavik. A massive explosion destroyed part of Askaborg. Princess Yrsa is confirmed dead. King Ivar and Queen Sina survived, and Saga is missing. Ivar accuses Saga of conspiring with the Zagadkians to assassinate him. Silla attempts and fails to contact Saga mind to mind. With no answers, Rey and Silla agree they must wait, investigate Mirkr's bargains, and face whatever comes next together. In Chapter 88, Saga awakens aboard a ship disoriented and panicked and is calmed by Rurik, who assures her she is safe and did not abandon her. He explains that after the explosion in Askaborg, he returned secretly, found Saga amid the destruction, and took her from the high table while King Ivar lay wounded and Princess Yrsa was dead. Saga realizes her unleashed power caused the devastation and killed Yrsa. Rurik reveals he brought her away as plans changed abruptly and they are sailing toward Midfjord. Seeking to ground her, Rurik later leads Saga into the ship's hull, where she discovers Magnus imprisoned. Rurik urges Saga to take vengeance, but she refuses. Magnus reveals Rurik is the beast of Zagadka, heir to the High Prince. Provoked, Rurik loses control and transforms into a monstrous form, brutally killing Magnus. Terrified, Saga flees. Ravgalad restrains her and forces her to swallow sleeping seeds, rendering her unconscious to protect her from panic and the truth. In Chapter 89, Saga awakens from a dreamless sleep to find Rurik watching over her, triggering panic as memories of his transformation resurface. Though remorseful, Rurik keeps his distance and reveals the truth. Saga slept for 7 days and they already passed Midfjord. Their agreement is broken and she is being taken to Zagadka instead. Rurik insists Zagadka is the only place he can protect her and help her control her volatile power. He explains Zagadka's secret. Its people all possess a form of magic that manifests as shifting, and that Magnus revealed critical information about Nostislav, a Zagadkian taken and killed in Svaldrin, exposing their secret to outsiders experimenting on magic users. Saga realizes she has lost her freedom again and angrily rejects Rurik's control. After a heated confrontation, Rurik leaves her locked in the cabin, providing drawing tools and sleeping seeds as they near Zagadka.